My name is Rayna Erasmus. I am the program manager and shows secretary here at the Retired Racehorse Project. I am joined by Molly Hutchison, our operations manager, and today we are hosting our 2026 Want to Apply webinar, where we will be going over the basics of the Thoroughbred Makeover, what you need to know to figure out if this is the right event for you, as well as how to actually apply and how to put your best foot forward in the application process. I do want to let you guys know that we will be taking questions. You can use the Q&A chat in Zoom. And if one of you wouldn't mind throwing something in that Q&A chat just to let me know that you can hear me and that that is working. We will likely stop at some point in the middle of the webinar and answer some of your questions, and then we'll hold time at the end to answer any questions you might have. But with that, if you guys have any questions throughout the entirety of the year, the entirety of the application process, you guys are going to want to reach us by email, and that is secretary@therrp.org. It is all over the website. We also have a contact us form that you all can fill out if you would like to get in contact with us, but email is always going to be the best way to reach us. If you try calling the office, most likely someone's not going to answer. We can work odd hours sometimes. Sometimes we work from home. And generally, our rule is that we want a written documentation of communication. So I do promise you that if it is something that we need to get on the phone in order to really talk through, we will schedule a phone call with you. However, in order to schedule that phone call, you're going to need to email us first, give us the details about what it is you have questions about, what you're having a problem with, and then we will be happy to schedule that phone call. But email is always going to be number one. Facebook, Instagram, social media in general, never going to be an appropriate way to reach us. We will use the Facebook group sometimes just to make some announcements. That will also always be an email. Facebook's never going to be the number one source for anything. But that doesn't mean commenting on different Facebook posts, asking questions, or messaging us on social media, is going to get you what you need. Nor sometimes someone might chime in as a previous makeover trainer and they might not have the right answer for you. They have the best of intentions, but things change every year with our rules and our formats, and that is just not the right way to get the correct and most accurate answer. So if you have questions, again, it's always going to be email, and that email is always going to be secretary@therrp.org. If it's something else to do with the Retired Racehorse Project, we'll always send you in the right direction, or you can use that contact us form and it'll send you to the right person as well. All right. So I'm just gonna get us right on into this with what is the makeover, and I'm going to hopefully share my screen here. All right. Molly, can you see? Oh no, I just pressed a button that I did not want to press. Hold on. Of course. We are off to a good start. Okay, so what is the Thoroughbred Makeover? Uh, you guys can find this page on our website, therrp.org, Thoroughbred Makeover, about, and then about the makeover. But the Thoroughbred Makeover is the largest thoroughbred retraining competition in the world for recently retired ex-race horses. One thing to note, the event is called the Thoroughbred Makeover. The organization is called the Retired Racehorse Project. That's just something that we like to note. You'll see often on social media, people say, oh, I'm going to the RRP. Well, that would mean that you're going to our little office in Edgewater, Maryland. But you're going to the Thoroughbred Makeover, which is a huge event in October at the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington. It is a very, very unique event. Something to note about it is it really is first and foremost a showcase of recently retired thoroughbreds, whether that's from the thoroughbred breeding industry or from the racing industry. We're showcasing all the wonderful things that these horses can do in their second and third careers. This is not your standard horse show. All of the horses there are going to meet the same eligibility requirements, either in the retired racehorse division or the former broodmare division. So they're all in a very similar timeline. They're all within their first 10 months of retraining for one of the 10 disciplines we offer, which is just very neat to see what these horses can accomplish in such a short period of time. It is a event that is open to riders of all statuses, whether you're a professional, a junior, or an amateur, this event is for you. We have had people that have been competitive at the event of all statuses. This is not necessarily a show where professionals always dominate. A lot of the time, honestly, our amateurs and juniors who have more time to dedicate to one single horse do very, very well. So we don't want you to be intimidated and think that this is something that's strictly for professionals. This is for everyone who loves thoroughbreds and wants to give them a good base of retraining. Um, with that too, you all are responsible for acquiring your own horses, unlike something like the Mustang Makeover, where you're assigned a horse. That is on you guys to acquire your own eligible horses. We do have resources, we have horse listings, plenty of places to help you guys find an eligible horse, but we will not be giving one to you. Um, with that, we'll go over some of the eligibility requirements. Um, and it is your responsibility to ensure that the horse is eligible, but it is also important to know that you do not need to have your horse right now. You can submit your application long before you actually acquire your eligible horse. Or you can have a eligible horse right now, and the horse you end up deciding to bring can change later on in the year. That's perfectly fine. You're just submitting your trainer application at this period to let us know that you, as a rider, are interested in participating and bringing along a horse that's recently retired from racing or breeding. The thoroughbred itself can come down a little bit later down in the line, though I know many of you do have your eligible horses right now, which is also wonderful. The retraining period started in December, and that's going to give you a leg up to get started as soon as possible. Um, because all of these horses are, in a very early stage of retraining, our discipline formats reflect that. We do have unique discipline formats that are going to differ from the traditional show that you might see or competition in those disciplines. We want to, every single discipline is judged, which is not necessarily traditional. We add a judge component to everything because we really want to make sure these horses are produced well and we're showing off that they've been produced and set up for success. So one example of that might be barrel racing, where the run itself is timed. That's going to be pretty standard to your typical barrel race, but there's also a flat pattern, which we call a horsemanship pattern, that you do have to do, and the movements on that flat pattern are scored. We'll go over the rule book soapbox here in a little bit, but all of our discipline formats are in the rule book, and I would implore all of you to look at those now, see what you're getting into, make sure it's stuff that you're going to be comfortable with. We do make sure that what we are asking of these horses is appropriate for their first year of retraining, knowing that every single individual horse is unique. So you might want to event your horse in October, but you might get closer July, August, and realize that individual horse is not ready to jump or not ready to jump at that level or not ready to do cross country. Well, we have plenty of other disciplines for you to pivot to. So, while the disciplines themselves might be appropriate, all of your horses are individuals, and we encourage you to treat them as such and figure out what the best path forward is for you all in those 10 months. The makeover is just the beginning, so whatever you compete at the makeover is not necessarily what you're going to compete that horse in for the rest of their second career. It is also important to note that the Thoroughbred Makeover, though we do have many people that use this as part of their business, program, and they're very successful at it with marketing horses that have gone to the makeover itself is not a money-making venture. It is very unlikely that in keeping a horse for 10 months, you are going to win enough prize money to make up for the general monthly costs of keeping a horse, plus the fees and all of that stuff. So please keep that in mind. Of course, horses, we do see an increase in a horse's value that's come to the makeover and successfully competed. It is a very large event, and it can say a lot about a horse that can go there and, do well. So it certainly adds value to the horse, but the event itself might not be a moneymaker for you. We do the best we can. We'll get into incentives here in a minute. We do the best we can to try to make this as affordable as possible. But it is all you need to keep in mind that horses are going to horse. We do have fees. Like I said, we're not a traditional horse show. We are requiring you guys to apply for the event. We have an application fee and horse registration fees, And this is not because we're just trying to, find different ways to get money from you all. This all goes back to my point that this is a showcase, and we want to make sure we are representing the breed and the horses in their second careers in the best light as possible. So, in order to do that, we have to have an application process. We have to have a horse registration process where we make sure that these horses are all, in fact, eligible. This requires a lot of staff time, a lot of volunteer time, a lot of web developing. Um, we put on webinars for you all year round. So if you do apply for the makeover, whether or not you end up competing in October, you will be paying that application fee and that registration fee. And once your application is accepted, those fees are non-refundable. So I implore you guys to consider that. We are always open to converting those fees to a donation for you all and issuing a tax receipt if you cannot make it for one reason or another. Um, and of course, like I said, anytime up until July, if the horse you have just isn't ready and you want to hold off or whatever it might be, you can bring a different horse who is eligible. But if, you get past the final entry point, we get to October and your horse has an abscess or you can't take the time off work, whatever it might be, uh, there are some fees that we just will not be able to refund you because those fees have already been spent in our staff time. They are not related to putting on the actual event itself. So please keep in mind that that is a risk. This is not a standard horse show where you're just paying your entry fees, a couple weeks beforehand and you're going. This is an investment. It is a timeline that you are starting 10 months ahead. So please keep that in mind. Every year we do get people that do not realize that those registration fees that you pay at application submission are non-refundable once you're accepted. We have that in the rule book. We have it on the application itself, on the waiver that you sign, everything. We try to make that as clear as possible, but it does get missed. And I just want to make that abundantly clear to you all right now that we put a lot of work into helping you guys every step of the way, and those fees are a part of that. Um, but with that, like I said, we really do our best to offer you guys incentives to make it as affordable as possible to participate. We're always looking for new ways to do that, looking for new incentives and scholarship programs. So I'm going to go over a couple of those right now. Uh, First and foremost, we do have just our general scholarships. There are some general scholarship horses that are going to be listed on our website. I don't know if we have any listed right now, but you can always check that out. Those are where the seller of the horse has agreed to cover a certain amount of your fees if you buy the horse from them. We also have the ASPCA Right Horse Scholarship. We started this scholarship last year through the Reimagining Racers with ASPCA. They have renewed the grant for 2026, so we're super excited to be able to offer that again. Um, and long and short of it is, if you adopt a horse from a Right Horse Partner facility, that horse is eligible for the scholarship. And all you have to do is apply for the makeover and register that horse with us. And that horse is going to be put on our list of eligible horses. So we have up to 50 spots. It's really first come, first serve. So you don't have to fill out any sort of extra application to be eligible for the scholarship. You just want to make sure you get your horse's registration in as soon as possible because there are limited spots. We do have, if you go to our website, horse listings, makeover scholarship program, we do link here so you can see a list of ASPCA Right Horse adoption partners. Some big ones you might think of are New Vocations and Second Stride. So there's a lot out there, and some of you might have already gotten your horse from a scholarship eligible facility and not even realized it, which is fantastic. This scholarship will cover your final entry fees, so that will be your first discipline and one stall. So it's a minimum value of $405 per horse. And there's plenty more you can read about those here. We will soon also have scholarship eligible horses, Right Horse Scholarship eligible horses listed on our website. But for now, you can find your local Right Horse adoption partner and shop directly through their websites as well. We have some regular incentives too. So if you go, let's see, Thoroughbred Makeover, compete, and this incentive over here, you can find our list of incentive programs. So we have some different rehoming programs, some for-profit, some nonprofit, that if you acquire a horse from them, they are happy to cover all or a portion of your entry fees. So take a look here, see if you've acquired your horse from any of these people, or if you haven't acquired your horse yet, if you would be interested in acquiring from any of these guys, because again, that's a great way to save some money in the process. Um, and these people are just, they're very happy to help support you on your journey to the makeover. What I do not have on our website, but I'd like to talk a little bit about, is our Make the Makeover program. So once you are accepted into the makeover, if you are competing as an individual or a team captain, you will have the opportunity to participate in our Make the Makeover fundraiser. And the short of it is every person that signs up, you will recruit within your own community, whether it's the horse that you're competing, their racing or breeding connections, whether it's just within your own personal network. You'll raise $1,000 for the organization through a fundraising platform called Give Lively. Every person that raises $1,000 will get their registration fees back. So that's $350, and we'll issue that via check or store credit. So that's another great way to support the organization and its mission, as well as get some of your money back. We normally have a top fundraising prize. We might also be adding a second tier where if you raise a certain amount, you also get some of your final entry fees covered as well. So that's something to keep in mind once you're accepted, to get that Give Lively profile up and running as soon as possible and give yourself as much time to raise money and get your entry fees back. This year is the first year that we are starting our trainer referral program. So if you are a repeat trainer, you've been accepted anytime 2025 and earlier for the Thoroughbred Makeover. Hopefully you signed up for the trainer referral program. And if you are a first-time trainer and you are friends with someone who's competed in the makeover in the past and is planning on competing in 2026, ask them if they signed up. We closed the sign up form on Monday, and I'm currently going through and making sure through all those signups, everyone is in fact eligible to be a referring trainer. And those guys are then going to get codes that you all, as first-time applicants or first-time trainers, can use at checkout. And that'll give you 10% off those registration fees that you pay at application submission. And so for our returning trainers, anytime someone, an eligible person, uses your code, so a first-time accepted applicant uses your code, you will then get $20 per code usage to use as store credit, whether that's towards your final entry fees for this year, RRP swag, or future registration fees. You'll get that $20 per eligible code usage. So those codes will be going out soon, but again, if you're friends with someone who's competing this year and has competed in the past, while you're a first-time participant yourself, reach out to them and see if they signed up so that you can have a code to use for yourself. And those are some of our incentives. Again, we're always looking for new ways to build on incentives and make this as affordable for you guys as possible. All right, so now let's get into the makeover itself. So, if you're thinking of applying for the makeover, first thing you're going to want to do is go to our Want to Apply page. So that you can find that on our website, about Want to Apply. There's tons of resources here, the eligibility requirements, the application requirements, a breakdown of the fees, and the resources. So rulebook, which is everything. That is the holy grail, like we talked about before. Give that a look through before you apply. Look at the discipline formats, look at the code of conduct, look at the horse eligibility, because we go into a little bit more detail on there than we do on this page. Just give it a good general skim at the very least. And this is always where what you're going to want to reference to anytime you have questions throughout the year. Of course, if the rulebook doesn't answer your question or you're a bit confused about how the rulebook words something, we're also always here to help. But rulebook should be your number one. We do link previous year's videos. If you go to Makeover videos, you'll see all of last year's videos. That'll give you an idea for the different courses and formats for the championship, what those looked like last year. You can see some of our previous year's webinars. This webinar, once it's done and recorded, is going to go over here. So you can watch the recording then. And this is our video guide, which we'll get into in a little bit, but that's for your application videos. Um, I want to quickly go over on this page the horse eligibility requirements. As I talked about earlier, you guys are responsible for sourcing your own eligible horses. We have two divisions, the retiring racehorse division and the former broodmare division. For the retiring racehorse division, um, they have to either had last raced or had a published work on or after July 1st of 2024. So that gives you some buffer time, that gives some time for a letdown period, but there is no wiggle room on that date. And that does have to either be a race or a published work. So it should be viewable via equine line or equibase. If you have any questions about whether or not your horse is eligible, if you're not sure how to look at their published works, reach out to us. We're always happy to pull those up for you and let you know. But just workouts that were not clocked and reported to the jockey club are not going to be sufficient for determining a horse's eligibility. And unfortunately, if your horse's last race or published work was even 2 days before that July 1st date, they're not eligible for the retiring racehorse division. There is not any wiggle room on that date. It's just one of those things that really becomes a slippery slope. So we have to stand true to our eligibility requirements. And very important second part of that is that they have to have started training in their second, they have must not have started retraining in their second career before December 1st of 2025. So this month, a couple weeks ago, was your retraining start date. Before December 1st, they cannot have had more than 15 rides between their last published work or race and December 1st. That 15 ride rule is to give time for some evaluation rides, some trial rides, wherever they are being rehomed. Um, it is not meant to get a jumpstart on training. And with that, a horse cannot have competed in a sport other than racing before December 1st of 2025. We do have a definition of what we consider a competition or a show to be, and that is defined in the rule book. It is defined here on the page as well. Um, so anything that's publicly marketed as a competition or a show, it issues placings or scores, it issues competitor numbers, or requires participants to follow a predetermined course or pattern. Um, if a horse participates in something that meets any of those requirements before December 1st, that will make them ineligible. If you're unsure if an event that your horse participated in December 1st would be considered a competition, reach out to us and we will let you know. This does include hunter paces. Whether or not the horse was an ex steeplechase horse or a flat racer, they cannot have participated in a hunter pace before December 1st of 2025. After December 1st of 2025, for those of you competing in 2026, there are no limitations to how many times you guys can ride your horse, how many times you guys can show your horse. In fact, we really encourage you guys to get as much retraining and get your horse out and about, seeing as many things as possible, get them to clinics, get them to shows, get them off property seeing the sights. The Thoroughbred Makeover is a huge environment, and the more that you can expose them to outside of your home base, whether that be a boarding barn or your backyard, is going to be super beneficial to them. As you can see here, there is some field hunting that is allowed for horses with verifiable starts as steeplechasers, but hunter paces themselves would be considered a competition as they do meet the criteria defined over here. Um, let's see here. If your horse came off the track with an injury that required tack walking as part of a veterinary prescribed rehab, that is not counted towards the 15 allowable rides. So tack walking is okay before December 1st as long as you have a you know, recording from your vet, a letter, whatever it might be, prescribing the rehab and detailing that information. There's more information in the rule book about that. Uh, and then before we move on to the former broodmare division, something important to note for both divisions is that horses have to be registered with the jockey club and they must have a jockey club registered microchip. So it's okay if your horse doesn't have a microchip right now, especially the former broodmares, it's going to be more likely there. So a lot of them might be a bit older, never were microchipped. That's okay. You just have to get them microchipped and register that microchip with the Jockey Club before final entry in August. So as long as they at least are registered with the Jockey Club, that criteria is met for now, and then you're going to need to fulfill the microchip requirement before final entry when we collect that number from you all. We do have resources about how to register your horse's microchip with the Jockey Club. And what I will say first and foremost is before you microchip them again, scan them thoroughly, and make sure that they do, in fact, not have a microchip. We also have resources about how to check to see if your horse does have a microchip or not, is or has one registered to them or not before you insert a microchip. We sell microchips in the store. Gonna try to not get too much into that right now, but don't panic about your horse not being microchipped at this stage. That's not required to apply. That's not required to register them, but it is required to compete. That is part of our traceability initiative. So for the former broodmares themselves, they need to have foaled or had a cover by a Jockey Club registered stallion in the 2024 breeding season or after. So similar to the retiring racehorse division, it's within the past 2 years. This again has to be a Jockey Club reported cover or foal. It needs to be to a Jockey Club registered stallion. This is specifically geared towards mares that are exiting the thoroughbred racing breeding industry. Um, and if similar with published works, if we cannot pull up through their produce report that cover or that foaling, we have no evidence from it. So that is equine line is going to be the only way for us to confirm your former broodmare's eligibility. If you have any questions, similarly, about whether or not they're eligible, reach out to us. We're always happy to look into that for you. Unlike the retiring racehorse division, they do not need to have a published work or race within a certain period of time. They just need to have had at least one lifetime start or published work. So it must be obvious to us that they were in race training at one point or another. And that workout does need to be recorded with the Jockey Club, but it doesn't need to be within the past 2 years or anything like that. They also are not subject to the 15 ride limit. We know that some of these broodmares might have been trail riding, in between foals and all that fun stuff. So they're not subject to the 15 ride limit. However, they are subject to the competition rule. So they also cannot have competed in anything other than racing for December 1st of 2025. Let's see here. Please do not go off strictly someone saying in an ad, hey, this horse is RRP eligible. This horse is makeover eligible. We ask you guys to do your due diligence. A lot of people with best of intentions are listing a horse as eligible and they don't necessarily know what the requirements are themselves. So ask questions specifically as it pertains to competitions and how many rides they've had. Really do your due diligence and make sure the horse is eligible rather than taking someone else's word for it. All right. Okay. So hopefully that covers just the general basics to get you started. And now we're going to get more into the application process. I want to start off by talking a little bit about why we have an application process. As we've discussed, this is a showcase, and we're not here having an application process just because we're trying to make things difficult for you all. And we also don't have an application process because we're looking to deny people. What we're trying to do is make sure that everyone is set up for success and everyone is going to represent the breed in a positive way. This is an information gathering tool. It is a way that helps us achieve our mission by making sure these horses are going to be represented well and they're going to be, given the tools that they need, as well as you all as the traders have the tools that you need. We are not out to get you. We have a wonderful application committee who will be reviewing these applications, and they are just looking to make sure that you are going to be safe and successful. And success is going to look different for everybody. We're not necessarily looking at your applications and being like, is this person going to win? No. We're looking at your applications and saying, is this person going to be safe? And is this person going to give their horse a positive experience as well as give themselves a positive experience? So put your best foot forward when you guys are filling out this application. We'll go through all that a bit more, what that looks like. But try not to be, it's not daunting, I promise. But you should take it seriously in that please don't phone it in. Please really give us a full picture of who you are as a rider, what your experience is, and what you might be doing to make up for lack of experience in some places. Like working with a trainer. That is not something we look down upon. We'll talk about that a little bit more. In fact, we would love to hear that you are working with a trainer, even if you are a professional yourself. So we have the application timeline listed here. As some of you may know, applications are currently open for drafting. So you could go into my account, you could start your application, you could fill it out, you could save it, but you can't submit it yet. This is just to give you all some time to get familiar with the application form itself, poke around, start filling out fields and reach out to us if you have any questions of, hey, I'm not sure if I should include this information. I'm not sure if I'm answering this question correctly. I'm not sure if this video meets the requirements, all that fun stuff. So this is now this is a great time to really just get familiar with the form and ask your questions now rather than later. Starting on January 5th, is when those will be open for submission. So between January 5th and January 23rd, you'll be able to submit your application without any penalty. That is going to include all of the requirements of the application. So no missing required fields. Your videos needs to meet the requirements. You need to have a vet letter that meets the requirements. You need to have your references listed appropriately. You need to have your waiver signed, and you need to have your payment submitted by 5 p.m. on January 23rd. After that, from 5:01 p.m. Eastern time, by the way, all of our deadlines are Eastern time. 5:01 Eastern time on January 23rd through June 5 p.m. Eastern time on June 26th, there will now be a late fee. So if you can, I always suggest getting your application in as soon as possible. I know a lot of you are going to try to procrastinate. We really ask that you don't. The sooner you get your application in, the more time we have to go back to you if our committee has questions or they need more information from you, or hey, you know what? The video that you uploaded, I can't actually access it, or it's super grainy and our committee can't assess it, whatever it might be. If you submit that as soon as possible, it gives us more time to actually get everything in order for you without having to accrue a late fee because you didn't submit at all of the appropriate materials until after that January 23rd deadline. Uh, Molly, do you have anything to add so far? No?
Not yet. I know you're going to backtrack to the things that I would throw in there, so no, not this time.
Um, so we do accept late applications, but there is a $100 late fee with that. So keep that in mind. Um, if you do submit your application with all of the requirements before the January 23rd deadline, you will receive a decision on your application on February 17th. Um, if you submit it after the January 23rd deadline, or you submit it during that period, but you're missing requirements and we don't get those requirements until after the January 23rd deadline, you will likely not be receiving a decision on your application until it could be up to 4 weeks after all requirements are in. But we do try to get to you guys as soon as possible. Let's see here. The makeover fees are all listed here. The only thing I'm really going to note about that is that the $200 application fee is for individuals, team captains, and team members. So if you're looking to do a team, which all of the information about teams is in the rule book, also happy to go over that with you guys in email. Every single person that you want to be on your team and you want to compete your horse at the makeover has to apply themselves. However, only the team captain is responsible for paying this $150 horse registration fee. The team members all only need to pay the application fee, but team captains and individuals will pay the $150 horse registration fee per horse. So if you plan to bring 3 horses, which is the maximum you can bring, you will pay $150 per horse. But also please note that with that $150 horse registration fee, if you plan on only bringing 1 horse, it's not going to cost you to withdraw a horse that you registered and register a different one in its place, for whatever reason that might be. So that's just A quick overview on fees. We do have a breakdown of the fees here so you can get a good look at it. I'm going to ask you guys to go over that yourselves so that we're not here for too much longer today. As we talked about already, you have some great resources here to get you guys started. Um, and going back up here to the application components, we are going to discuss details, experience, personal narrative here in a couple minutes. What I want to talk about quickly are references and vet letter and videos, and then we'll actually dive into what the actual application looks like. So we have two different types of references for your application requirements. We have your personal references and your vet letter of recommendation. Uh, your personal references, you will need two of them, and these cannot be someone employed by you. Um, and they cannot be a family member. So, what I will ask and implore is that at least one of these references is someone who has trained you in riding and can speak to your riding ability in a more objective way, so not a friend, uh, in recent years. So please, please, please have one of these people, at least one, be a trainer of some sort, riding instructor. Uh, and then the other person can be a barn manager, it can be a friend, though we prefer it not be someone who can speak to your horsemanship as well. They shouldn't be just a friend that knows nothing about horses. They should both references absolutely need to be people that can speak to your riding abilities and speak to your horsemanship. Um, Ideally, at least one of them is going to be a trainer. So we do see often a trainer, and a barn manager, and that's perfectly fine. Um, but friends are not helpful. And you do not need to provide a letter for these references. You are just going to be listing their contact information on your application, and our committee will contact them if they feel the need to. Um, what does require a letter is the vet letter of recommendation. We do have a sample here. You do need to upload a new vet letter every single year. So if you're a returning trainer and it's been a few years, you do need a new vet letter. The basics of the vet letter is it needs to be signed by the vet, it needs to be dated, and it needs to be on letterhead. So we get the vet's contact information. It's a very simple letter. It does not have to relate to your makeover horse, as we know many of you might not have your horse yet. It just needs to be your vet confirming that they believe you have the tools and resources to properly care for a horse that's recently retired from racing. So it has nothing to do with your riding. This is speaking to your ability to care for a horse that's in a period of transition. They can keep it very simple. Um, this sample letter here talks about how this person. Oh, okay, I think we took that out. We used to have one that talked about yeah, see it says that she's participated in the makeover several times. If you've not participated in the makeover, or even if you have, that doesn't need to be in your letter. What needs to be in your letter is that your vet thinks that you have the tools and resources to care for a horse that is transitioning from racing into a second career or breeding into a third career. So again, we will be looking for that signature. We will be looking for a date, and that date needs to be, let's say, anytime after October of 2025 up until the submission date of your application. So if you applied last year, a letter from January of 2025 is not going to do it. So make sure your vet's updating those dates, make sure they're signing it, putting it on letterhead, and just saying that they think that you can care for the horse. All right. And now the biggest part of the application are the videos, and we really do have a handy dandy video guide here. It is kind of rubric style, so depending on what discipline you plan to indicate on your application, those are the videos that you are going to want to upload onto the application. Important to note here is that the discipline that you indicate on your application should be the discipline that you feel you're most likely to participate in and that you have the experience to represent yourself for on the application. But that discipline selection does not lock you into actually competing in that discipline in October. This is just for our committee to get a better view of your experience, to know what types of videos and skills they're looking for, but you absolutely have the opportunity to change that. Um, the basics of the videos are that they all need to be taken within 2 years of application submission. Uh, it's a lot can change in someone's riding within 2 years, so keeping it recent is very, very important. Um, and that's for your flat video and your jumping and your discipline video. So any video you upload that meets the 2 to 3, depending on your discipline, required videos has to be taken within the last 2 years. The video has to be accessible via a link that does not expire, doesn't require the viewer to log in, and doesn't require the viewer to download the file. So a lot of people like to use iCloud, but the problem with iCloud is those links expire, and or they require the viewer to download a video file in order to watch it. We are always trying to protect our application committee. They're putting in a lot of work, and so we don't want them to have to sign in, because that might reveal their identity, and we also don't want them to have to risk downloading a file. So always going to recommend that you upload your videos to YouTube or Vimeo. Those are the two best platforms to.
Looks like we lost Rayna. Please hold. We're trying to get her back in. She got booted out of Zoom. While Rayna is gone for a minute, I'm going to double check if anyone has any questions so that she can come back in. I have one here asking if a farrier would be an acceptable reference. And a farrier would be an acceptable reference for your horsemanship reference. I would not recommend that for your like trainer type reference, and that would not be acceptable for your vet letter. So, if you're good friends with your farrier, if they see you engaging with your horse, which they likely do, that would definitely be an option for your horsemanship one. And we have another one. Is it count as a negative towards your application if you do not have a public show record? That's a really good question, and that's one that we have often. And that's a little bit of a complicated answer because while experience can mean a lot for some people, that's not everything. And it certainly does not count as marks against you if you have you're working with a trainer, you have some other things going on in your training plan for the horse that you have. Like you're going to some off-site schooling or you're doing some clinics and other things like that. Rayna, do you have anything specific to add to that? Because I know that's a question that we get a lot.
Sure. First of all, sorry, I don't know why, but I got booted from Zoom. But
You froze real hard.
it just literally just like um anyway, so I yeah, that is a great question. I would say if you have otherwise have experience, even if it's not in showing, and you indicate strongly in your application that you have intentions to show, it is not going to be that big of a deal. We especially know like you might have experience at schooling shows, and so there is no record of that. That's perfectly fine. Talk about that in your application. Talk about what types of competitions you've been to, name them, name the and we'll get into that a little bit more once we get into the actual application itself. But give the name of the show, what type of class you participated in, how you performed in that. Even if there is no record of it, like it's not a USCF, recognized show, that's okay. And if you don't have show experience yourself, just talk about how you intend to get that show experience, and other ways you plan to, expose your horse to the correct environments. We do know
Yeah.
that some of the disciplines we offer do not have traditional shows, right? So field hunters, um, and like competitive trail, depending on how you view that, all that kind of stuff, freestyle. Like a lot of it is there's not going to be a direct link. So just talk about what you have done and what you plan to do, but an actual record, as long as you can make up for it in other ways, is not a big deal.
Yeah. What they want to see is that you're going to be able to be in an environment where there's 10 different disciplines and a really big show park. And if that's not something that you're familiar with, that you're just aware of that and you have that understanding and you'll be able to be comfortable there and a good partner for your horse. And I'll go ahead and answer these or read these other two for us to answer real quick before we continue. Should we include all of the disciplines we are considering or just the most likely? So, Sarah, you're going to have the option to select just one, which is your primary discipline on your application. And once you see, Raina's going to go into the application a little bit later on, next up actually, but you'll be able to select all of the disciplines that you have done in the past or that you have some experience in on your application as well. And you're, of course, welcome in your narrative to add in what you're interested in doing aside from that primary discipline. The primary discipline that you select on your application does not lock you in, as Rena said, but it is the lens through which your application is reviewed. So that's why those videos are important, like the discipline video, that's the lens through which your application is going to be looked at. So if you say that you're doing eventing, you need to have some display of show jumping, dressage, and cross country. So Raina will have some good examples of that, and this guide has, like we said, a good rubric layout of exactly what is required of you on the video component of that. But you have the opportunity to explain that or go into that in more detail in your application, however you see fit, if you feel like you want to expand more.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to sum that up, you can certainly represent in your application all the disciplines you have experience in, um, to indicate which disciplines you might participate in, but you will select one discipline on your application, and that will be the discipline that you are most likely to compete in, or the one that you like want to compete in the most. You will ultimately be able to compete in up to two, but on the application you will select one.
And this last question has a little bit of a similar answer. But if we're going to bring multiple horses in different disciplines, which discipline should we put down? So, similarly, put down the one in which you want to be reviewed on. You want your application to be reviewed on. But we'd love to hear in maybe your training plan and a little bit in your narrative, if you have the intention to bring multiple horses, what disciplines you're hoping to do with them, and how you want to prepare, or what the horses are interested in doing. So.
I think the only thing I will add to that is if one of the disciplines you want to do is a jumping discipline and the other one is not, I would always prioritize selecting the jumping discipline in order to provide the appropriate videos to get your jumping restriction lifted, which we'll go over here in a minute. So let's
Yes.
say you are going to do one horse in show hunters and the other in dressage or competitive trail, or barrel racing, something completely different. Prioritize selecting show hunters so that you can make sure that you don't have to send in any additional videos later in the year. If you're planning on doing a jumping discipline and polo, please just make sure to include polo in your additional video, which we can look at when we get to the actual application form. Is
All
that
right,
everything?
those are it for now.
All right, when did I get cut off?
Just start from the top.
From the very top of this?
Yeah, I don't know where you were exactly when you got cut because you froze
Okay.
hard.
We talked about 2 years submission.
Yes, we did that.
Okay. Accessible links, YouTube and Vimeo.
Accessible links. We got YouTube and Vimeo.
Okay. All right.
You guys know you need to be in full view. Please take your videos horizontally, not vertically. Please don't be down at the end of the ring on a 20-meter circle where no one can see you and you're just like a pea in the distance.
Yeah. So, okay.
Yeah.
So I will stop after accessible links, or I will pick up after accessible links, which is, again, to sum it up, just upload to YouTube and Vimeo. One important thing to note, and something that people seem to get tripped up about every year, your videos should not be on your makeover hopeful. In fact, you should be selecting a well-schooled horse. These videos are about representing you in the best light. We do not need to see your makeover horse. You don't even necessarily have to be on a thoroughbred, though I do recommend it. And every once in a while, like if you send us a video on a pony or on a draft horse, and our committee is finding it really difficult to be able to tell how your riding would translate to a thoroughbred, they might ask you to send a video on a thoroughbred. But for your initial application, it is not required. What is required is that horse is well schooled. It's not your makeover hopeful, and it is going to be representing you in the best possible light. It is going to be capable of doing the movements required in the application videos. Um, the horse that you use in your video is also expected to be sound. It is expected to be in good body condition and capable of performing at the level required. If you submit a video of an unsound horse, uh, you will be hearing from us. Please don't. If you are submitting a video on a very underweight horse, you will likely be hearing from us. To actually compete in the makeover itself, your horse is going to have to pass an arrival exam where they are a body condition of 4 or higher, and they are going to have to pass a very basic soundness exam at the walk. Um, if the horse you're riding in the video would not pass the arrival exam, you should not be riding it in your video. That's going to be the short and sweet of it. But remember, you need to represent yourself well, and that includes picking a horse that is suitable and healthy for the job that you're asking them to do in that video. Like Molly quickly talked about, the video needs to show you and the horse that you're riding in full view. Um, and it should be filmed horizontally rather than vertically. That allows you guys to be in full view at all times. If you film something horizontally, or if you film something vertically, the chances that you're going to go out of frame are just much higher. Um, Helmet like GoPro videos, they don't count. We need to be to able to see your actual riding. While yeah, a GoPro video shows that you jumped a fence, we can't see how you jumped it. So no GoPro videos, or any other POV type video. Someone else needs to be filming you from the ground. Or if you can get it so that you're not a tiny little grain of rice on the screen, you can prop up a phone on a fence too, or you can use a Pivo or all that fun stuff. Um, Pictures, video stills, slideshows, also not going to fly. These do need to be actual videos of you riding, performing the required movements. Um, and Molly talked a little bit too. Film in an appropriate setting for the task. You can film these videos at home, just schooling by yourself. You could film them in an arena. You can film them in a field. They could be from a show. They could be from a clinic, a lesson, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the times competition videos are great because you know they're going to meet the requirements, but it is that is not required. A lesson or a schooling at home is perfectly fine, and you do not need to have a perfectly manicured arena. If you ride out in a field, ride out in a field. But just make sure that you are actually visible and not a tiny little grain of rice. What I always tell people is have whoever is filming you stand in the middle and you ride around them. Don't stay on a constant circle, use your full space. But that way, if they're standing in a corner, often that gets an awkward angle, or it makes it so when you're very far away, it's hard to see you because a lot of people don't zoom in. So have them stand in the middle if you're taking a video specifically for your application. If you already have videos and it's easy to see you, and I know a lot for like dressage competitions, they're obviously not going to be standing in the middle of the ring. That's perfectly fine as long as you are in full view and we are able to see you. So they're zooming in appropriately, all that fun stuff. And make sure the video is uploaded in a high enough quality. I will come back to you if I'm pre-screening your application before I send it to the committee and it's just a blurry, pixelated mess and I can't see anything. I'll say, hey, either you're going to need to try uploading this video at a higher viewing quality, or we're going to need a different video because the committee can't assess this. So please make sure lighting, video quality, all that's good enough so that they can actually see you and your writing. The flat video is the video that is going to be required by every single applicant. It's a basic flat video. It just needs to show you riding at all three gaits in both directions. Please include transitions. So that's upward and downward transitions between gaits. That's walk, jog, lope, walk, trot, canter, whichever discipline you might do, in both directions. The walk does not need to be shown extensively. It's really just to be there as a means of demonstrating the transitions upward and downward. Um, but trot and canter or jog and lope do need to be shown extensively. We do want to see upward and downward transitions between each of those gaits. So please show one walk to trot, one trot to walk, one trot to canter, one canter to trot, all that fun stuff. There should be at least one of those transitions in each direction. If you have one kind of icky one and the rest of the video is great and you want to cut that specific transition out, but you show it in the other direction, that's perfectly fine. But if you cut out every single transition, I'm gonna have to come back to you and say, hey, I'm gonna need you to re-upload this and put the transitions back in, or go take another video where you like your transitions a little bit more. Um, we talked about utilizing the full space. Please don't stay on a constant circle. Um, while it can be filmed in any appropriate setting, riding in a small round pen is not an appropriate setting. So you're gonna want to be in an arena or in a field, that kind of stuff, where you have enough space to utilize, where we can see you riding in a full space. And you can ride on circles, but we don't want you to be constantly on a circle for the entirety of the video. Uh, a flat video that demonstrates all the requirements for a sufficient period of time. It's going to be about a minute and a half to 2 minutes long, depending on what you do. A lot of applicants might find it easiest to just come up with a flat pattern ahead of time to make sure that they're demonstrating all the required movements. A video of a dressage test is going to work. You can also go look in the rule book and see if the horsemanship pattern for barrel racing, the flat pattern for ranch, the flat pattern for show jumpers, you can incorporate those in there too, so that you have more of a basis to go off of. So every single person is going to need to submit that flat video. And then your discipline videos are going to vary based off of the discipline you select on your application. I'm not going to go through each one. I'm just going to say that if you do not submit appropriate jumping video and your application is otherwise accepted, you will be accepted with a limited non-jumping restriction. Um, there is opportunity to lift that restriction. You have until June to then submit a video that meets the requirements. The committee will review it and let you know whether or not they're comfortable lifting that restriction. So if you apply and you want to apply for a jumping discipline, but you do not have a jumping video at the moment, submit with your flat videos. You will link your flat video in the jumping video and discipline video location and simply put in the notes, I do not have a jumping video at this time. I accept a limited non-jumping restriction. I will upload a jumping video later. Um, if you apply for dressage and so you don't supply a jumping video, but later on you decide you want to provide one, you can do that and have that jumping restriction lifted. That is very possible. Or you can apply for dressage. There is a spot on the application for additional videos. If you think you might want to jump, throw that in there as long as it otherwise meets the requirements. Um, if you're someone who, is going to apply for a flat video, like for a flat discipline, like barrel racing, competitive trail, dressage, freestyle, polo, ranch work, um, I would suggest looking at the jumping video requirements. If you're going to apply for one of those disciplines, but you think there's a high chance that you might want to jump in the makeover, I suggest looking at the video requirements for show hunters and show jumpers, because those are going to be our most basic jumping video requirements, because they don't include any cross-country elements. Um, Look at those requirements, see if you have a video that meets those requirements for the past 2 years, and add that to the additional video section. But otherwise, take a look at this rubric, figure out if your videos that you have meet the requirements. If not, go ahead and take those videos as soon as possible. It is perfectly fine if you do not have a horse in your program right now that you think is suitable enough to really show off your riding or is able to do these videos. Reach out to a friend, ask if you could borrow their horse. Reach out to a lesson program, ask if you could take a lesson for the purposes of getting your application videos. There's plenty of options here. And like I said, videos from the past 2 years are acceptable. So you don't need to have taken a video specifically for this process as long as it otherwise meets the requirements. But I'm going to leave you guys after this webinar to go ahead and check this document, see if the videos you have meet the requirements. You can always reach out to us, send me links and say, hey, here's the videos I have for X discipline. What do you think? Should I use this? Do I need to get another video? All that good stuff. Again, always happy to help. All right. So let's move on to the actual application now. So in order to access the application, you're going to go to My Account, then you're going to hit Thoroughbred Makeover, and you're going to scroll down. We have some handy dandy deadlines here that'll be relevant to you later. And you're going to hit Open My Application. And eventually it will load. And again, we have a reminder of deadlines here, required fields, all that fun stuff. Trainer details. My one note here, please make sure that whatever email is connected to your account is an email you have access to, where the inbox isn't full, your emails aren't going to bounce back, and that you're actually going to check. Our main way of contacting you guys throughout the year is going to be email. So if you're not someone that checks your email regularly, it's time to start training yourself to do so. Even if it's on a weekly basis, but regardless, make sure this email here is the correct email. If you might be like me, I've got three different emails. One's my work email, I have my personal email, whatever it is. Make sure the email that you have there is the one that you're actually going to be checking, you're actually going to have access to, all that good stuff. And if you have to change it, you can change that in account details. Make sure your date of birth is correct, because that's obviously going to tie into your professional, amateur, junior status, all that kind of stuff. And then with that too, you do have the opportunity to add your business page or social media page, whatever that might be, which will be linked to your entry profile, our entry list once acceptances are announced. So you can add that here if that's something that you would like to do, but it's not required. What is required is you answering yes or no to, in the last 12 months, have you been compensated in any way for riding, training, or giving lessons? That's going to be any type of riding, any type of lessons, any type of riding lessons. It also includes exercise riding at the track, any type of compensation, including reduced board or product. So if you have someone paying you to keep their horse in work, if you are teaching up-down lessons that you're getting compensated for, all that kind of stuff, even if it's not relevant to the specific discipline that you are going to be competing in, that would make you a professional for the terms of our event. So you're going to answer yes to that question. If you do not get compensated in any way for riding, training, teaching, um, then you'll answer no, and you will be, if you are above, if you're older than 18, then you will be an amateur. If not, you will be a professional. If you're under 18, doesn't really matter how you answer this question, you're going to be a junior. All right, so now we get into the experience section. This is what we call the horseman's resume, and we've alluded to it a couple times today. This is where you're going to select that discipline. It's going to determine what videos we want to see from you all. So again, it doesn't lock you into anything, but please select the discipline that you would really like to represent yourself as, that you think you're most likely going to compete in. All this year, we're just trying to gather some information on your experience, so please answer this as accurately as possible. If you do have a publicly available show record, please share that information with us. That's always great. That's always helpful for the committee. But again, if you don't have that, don't sweat it. But we just want to know how long you've been riding, how long you've been riding green horses, how many horses you've cared for in your life, how many years you've been riding competitively, if at all. Um, Pony Club, not required, but would love to know. Any other equine related affiliation. So again, if you're a licensed exercise rider, we want to know about that. If you're a member of a different horse show, local horse show association, if you volunteer at like a therapeutic riding center, include all that information here. This is just other certificates, license memberships, affiliation. So you're not going to get into your riding experience here, but just some other memberships and titles you might hold. Now here is where you can check, you're going to be able to expand on any riding experience you have. So if you have sufficient experience in any of the disciplines listed below, go ahead and check that box. And what that's going to do is it's going to populate another field for you to expand on your experience in that discipline. So I've selected a couple different ones here. I have dressage, hunters, eventing, fox hunting, and recreational ridings and trail. So I'm going to go ahead. If I was filling out this application, I'm going to expand on what my experience in that discipline looks like. What you want to do is you want to keep that experience recent and relevant. So start off by telling us when you started training in that discipline. Give us the year. So rather than say, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years, say, hey, I started in 1980. Give us the year, and then I want you to tell us highest level you've trained at, highest level you've competed at, and then what you're currently doing. So that's going to be, I'm currently schooling this level or this movement. I'm currently competing at this level, this movement. Here's some recent show results that I have. Uh, Here's a goal that I'm working towards, and here is how often I train. So I school this discipline on my own X number of times a week, X number of times a month. I take lessons in this discipline with this person X number of times a week, X number of times a month, whatever it might be. Give us the highlights, give us who is helping you and how, what types of horses you ride in that discipline, right? Like, oh, I am actively training recently retired racehorses in this discipline, or I am riding schoolmasters in this discipline. Um, all of that is relevant information. You don't necessarily need to get into the like, oh, I fell in love with this discipline because this and that. Like, love that. We have another separate part of the application for you guys to get fluffy. This is where we want your experience. We want to know, you know, again, your highlights, what you're working towards, what your active participation in that discipline currently looks like. And again, your biggest accomplishment and all of the relevant years with that. So for some of these fields, it might look longer than others, depending on how long you've done the discipline. But for like, if you've maybe gone on a trail ride once or twice, you don't have to select that box and talk about it if that's not a big part of your riding or it's not something you feel you need to represent. Then you'll get to the personal narrative section. And this is where it's going to say, please tell us about any additional applicable experience that isn't sufficiently documented above. So if we don't have a discipline that you compete in, you can expand on that in this box. If you want to talk about, like I did here, hey, I don't come from a family of equestrians. I didn't have the opportunity to lease, own, or seriously compete until I was an adult with my own adult money. You could talk about that. Um, you know, you could talk about what types of horses you've rode in the past. You could talk about how you fell in love with horses and riding or whatever that might be. You could talk about any things that you've had to overcome, breaks that you've taken in your riding, anything that might be relevant and really help give our committee a full picture of your experience and your riding and what you're working towards and what obstacles you've had to face. Um, and then why do you want to enter the Thoroughbred Makeover? This is, again, personal choice. You could just be like, because I found an eligible horse and I want to do it. Seems cool. Um, you could say like, I like the mission, whatever it might be. That answer is going to be personal. It can be long, it can be short. That's up to you. This question over here, do you currently or do you plan to work with a trainer/professional during your makeover training process? If so, who and how frequently, and is anyone else helping you along the way? Please provide the names and explain the roles of those involved in your preparation for the makeover. This one really seems to trip people up sometimes. Um, it is more than okay for you to be working with a trainer or professional. We really like to see that answer. But yes, I am taking weekly lessons and I'm taking them in this discipline with this person. And then I'm taking monthly lessons on top of that with this person in this discipline. Um, and they like talk about your trainer and how they support you. Uh, all the different ways they're helping you prep. Is your trainer someone that's participated in the makeover in the past and really understands the experience? Um, are you going to be reaching out to different clinicians? This is where we really want to see who is supporting you with professional experience, especially if maybe you do not have show experience. You know, you do not have a ton of experience with thoroughbreds. This is where you're going to want to explain to us how you are bringing other people into the process that do have that experience. It can really help you have a positive, successful journey to the makeover. And then with that too, include any other like personal support, like, hey, I have so many great barn friends. They've done the makeover or they haven't, and they're going to be there to cheer me on because I know every once in a while I'm going to hit a rut and I'm going to need some support. My family's going to be there. Whoever it might be that's cheering you on, your farrier, your vet. I've got a great relationship with these people. I'm going to be checking in with them. They're going to be helping me, making sure, my horse is doing well, I'm doing well, whatever it might be. We just want to make sure you're supported in your journey. So you can talk about your personal support network as well. But we really, really do want to hear about any professionals that might be helping you along the way. And we do hope you are utilizing professionals. Then you're going to talk about your described, your intended training prep and preparation process, especially for those of you that might not have a lot of show experience. This is where it's going to be very important to talk about like how you plan on getting out there with your horse and exposing them to different environments and making sure you're both prepared for the competition environment of the makeover. And you could also talk about like generally the foundation you want to put on your horse. You know, hey, I really want to start with putting a good dressage foundation on the horse and then like working on pull work and then we'll work up to jumping, all that kind of stuff. Whatever's relevant to your discipline. Hey, you know what? I'm doing ranch work and I live on a cattle farm. So we're starting off with hacking around on the property and introducing my horse to cows. Like anything like that that's relevant to your discipline, relevant to how you're going to prepare your horse for the discipline you plan on competing, how you're going to prepare them for the environment of the makeover, how you're going to prepare yourself, right? That might tie back into the previous question. Like a lot of our preparation is going to be in these lessons and these clinics, and then here are some shows that we intend on doing, or here's how we're getting out and about into the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be like on X day I'm going to do this, and on this day I'm going to do this, but like a good overview of how you plan to prepare both yourself and your horse for the environment and for the requirements of the discipline. So, as you can see here, I had quite the long response, but this is going to look different for everybody. References, we've already talked about. This is going to be your two personal references. This is not going to be your vet reference. There is an upload letter for that later. We don't need a letter from your personal references. You're going to give us their name, your relationship to them, and their phone number. Again, please make one of these people someone who can speak to your riding um, in a more objective manner rather than a friend. This should be a trainer, someone who has a role in helping you along the way with your riding. And then one, if not both of them, should be able to speak to your horsemanship. It cannot be a family member. It cannot be individuals that are employed by you without counting, like, if you say, like, well, I'm employing my trainer, that doesn't count. Um, But like if you are a trainer yourself, please don't put a client there. Videos, we've already talked about. Again, this kind of goes through the different video requirements. It links back to that format. Read it all, make sure you're familiar. But what you're going to do is you're going to link your video here, that's ideally on YouTube or Vimeo. You're going to give us the date that the video was filmed and the description. For the video date, a quick thing that I want to go into is if you're using a video compilation for whatever reason, um, which we would prefer you don't, but if you do, that's okay. The flat video date, you're going to put the oldest video in that compilation. So if you have one video in that compilation that was filmed a year and a half ago and another video that was filmed a month ago, put the date that the video taken a year and a half ago was filmed as the flat video date. And then in the flat video description, you're going to expand upon that. The flat video description is a lot more important than I think some people believe it to be. You don't need to put in the flat video description, I'm jumping a meter 10 course. Well, we could see that you're jumping a meter 10 course in the video, right? So what I want you to do is describe your experience with that horse in that video. So this video was taken at this show. I was riding a horse that, this is the horse's breed, this is their age. I've been riding them for 2 years. I rode them last month. They're very well schooled. They're very green. Hopefully they're not very green. They're very lazy. They're very forward. Tell us about your experience. You can even say like, hey, listen, we had a rough transition into the canter and here's what I'm working on. Like it is okay to call out spots in the video where you don't feel like represented your riding best and talk about how you're working on that. You could talk about how like overall, like I struggle with X on this horse, or I think that I really enjoy riding this horse because of X. Give your selection committee member as much context as possible. Um, about the horse you're riding and about your experience with that horse. You might be like, hey, I literally hopped on this horse, never met this horse in my life, just to take a video for this application. And that horse turned out to be very forward or very lazy. And I'm used to that, or I'm not used to that, all that good stuff. Um, and if it is a compilation video, just call out each section and give a similar description. Like, okay, first video in this clip was taken on X date on the chestnut horse, and then use the description. Second video, taken on this date on the paint pony, description that we just described. So you're going to put your flat video, then depending on what discipline you select is what videos will populate here. So if you selected eventing, hunters, show jumpers, or field hunters, you're going to see both a jump video and a discipline video. Um, for some of you, if you're doing show hunters and show jumpers, your jumping video and your discipline video can be the exact same video. Or if you have two different videos that meet the jumping requirements, you can use two videos. We would love to see multiple videos of you jumping. If you are doing field hunters or eventing, you're going to put your more stadium-based jumping video in the jump video section and your cross-country video in the discipline video section. If you use a compilation that has both your full show jumping course and your cross-country clips in one video, you can link them both here. And again, use the video descriptions appropriately. You will not be able to submit your application if one of these fields is empty. So even if you're using repeat videos, make sure you put the link there. What we don't want is for you to link us to a video playlist that has all 3, 4, 5, 6 videos on it. Please make sure any video you want us to see is uploaded as a single video. So your flat video, there's one link for it. Your jump video, there's one link for it, and that you're not just giving us a playlist. That can make it hard to keep up and make the descriptions accurate and easy to follow. Let's see here, the extra video we talked about, this is optional. If you have a video that is just fun and you want us to see, like, or if you're someone applying for a flat video but you think you want to jump, you're going to put the jumping video here. If you're someone who, hey, I do have a video on my makeover horse and I think it does represent my riding well, so while I've met these other requirements, I also want to include that, go ahead. If you have an older video that, you've otherwise met the requirements up here, but you think it represents your riding very well and you want the committee to see that, you can include that here. If you have a video at Liberty and you're just like, hey, this is cool, I want you to see this, go ahead. Like this is your opportunity to show off something a little extra if you'd like to, but again, by no means required if you've otherwise met the requirements for the other videos. The upload section, this is going to be simply where you put your vet letter. A lot of mistakes I've seen people make here is that they will try to upload a Word document and the upload will not catch, it will not submit, all that fun stuff. So make sure it is one of these accepted file forms up here. If you need any assistance, you can always reach out to us for that. All right, and just some general authorizations here. We will often, if you check this box to allow us to send you text messages, which I suggest you do, if we're coming up on a deadline and you have not submitted a certain form, you've not paid a fee, whatever, and your entry is at risk of being withdrawn, I would highly, that's how we're going to try to get in contact with you if email has not been working. So I really do suggest that you opt into these text messages and then you give us your phone number to confirm. We have a contact opt-in over here, which will allow us to share your contact information with like racing connections or media people. We are not going to be selling your information to anybody or just giving it out all willy-nilly. But this is for people that might peruse our entries list and reach out and be like, hey, I actually I was an exercise rider and I rode that horse when he was on the track, or I helped prep that horse for the sale. I'd really love to get in contact with this person, support them on their journey, all that fun stuff. Or someone might be like, hey, that's a really cool horse, and I'd like to write an article on their journey. And they might contact us and ask for your email and information. So if you check that box, you're allowing us to share your email or other contact information with them that way. But we're not going to just be like giving it out willy-nilly, selling it on the interwebs. You're safe. And then this, again, another optional box. This is if we do end up putting together a directory for it, which will then list any traders that want to have their contact information made publicly available for people. Like who are interested in rehoming their horses, most likely. Or they could be looking for someone to help train their horse if you're a professional. So if you would like to have your contact information publicly available on a directory list, that you could check that box. Again, perfectly optional. And then you've reached the end of the application. And right now we're in the save period, so you're only gonna hit the save button. Once we get to the submission period in January, you will see a save button here and a submit button here. If you're ready, you're going to go ahead and hit that submit button. It's going to redirect you to the waiver. Make sure you submit that waiver. You fill it out and submit it because that is one of the 4 required fields for us to be able to pass your application on to the application committee. So once it redirects you to the waiver, make sure you get that filled out and submitted, and then it'll redirect you to payment. Make sure you get your payment submitted. We will not be passing your application on to the committee if you have not paid yet. And again, any applications with missing requirements as of 5 p.m. on January 23rd will then acquire a late fee in order for us to pass your application on. So you'll have a late fee and you'll still have to submit whatever that missing requirement is before we can pass your application on to be reviewed. We do ask that you, like I talked about earlier, please don't procrastinate. Please give us as much time as possible to get in contact with you if there's anything that is missing or anything that doesn't quite meet the requirements, or if we just have any questions, please submit as soon as possible. And I think with that, if there are any other questions, that's all I've got for now, and I'm happy to open the floor to questions.
I will read you some questions, and if anyone else has more, go ahead and send them in. Is there a cap on the number of people accepted per discipline? And I'll go ahead and answer that one first. I'll ask the next one separately.
Um, Per discipline, no. We do not have a cap per discipline on how many people will accept. So again, that what discipline you select on your application is really not going to have, it's not going to have a negative impact in that way. The only way it's going to have a negative impact is if you select a discipline that you cannot provide the appropriate videos and experience for.
And then what is the most common reason for a denied application? And if an application is denied, is there an appeal?
Okay. So honestly, like the most common reason for a denial is lack of appropriate experience. So someone very new to riding, lack of appropriate experience and lack of professional support as a combination is really going to be the biggest reason. So if you're someone that's only been riding a year or two, just getting started on thoroughbreds, not really planning on working with a trainer, all that kind of stuff, this is probably not the event for you. Um, if you just generally, we have people that don't demonstrate they just don't demonstrate themselves to the fullest extent, right? They kind of phone in their application. They don't give the committee any information to go off of, and we go back to reach out for more information. They don't give us more information, and the committee can only work with what they have. So we will always try to give you guys as much opportunity as possible to expand on information if we feel like it's missing, if we feel like there's something there that is not giving us the opportunity to issue an acceptance. But truly, normally the biggest reason is lack of professional support and lack of experience. And by lack of experience, I don't mean lack of showing experience. I just mean either lack of experience with riding in general, lack of experience with the discipline indicated, um, or like major lack of experience with thoroughbreds or like adjacent type horses. Um, Again, we're just looking to make sure you guys are going to be safe and successful. There is not an appeal process. Once you reach a denial, that is final for the year. You are absolutely encouraged to reapply in future years. You will be given uh, feedback as to why your application was not accepted by the selection committee, but there is not an appeal process. That is final. If an application is not accepted, the registration fees are refunded, minus I believe it's $50 processing fee, just to cover the processing fees from our payment processor. But you will receive a refund for that. You will receive an explanation, but it is not appealable. And what we try to do if there's someone that's on the bubble, we will often say, hey, we're not going to issue a decision right now. Here is the information we would like to see come June. Here's some follow-up, videos and stuff we'd like to see, give you another opportunity. So we our committee doesn't issue a denial unless they're pretty confident with the information that they provided. This is just not an appropriate goal at this time.
Any other questions?
All
No
right.
other questions.
All right, all. Well, thank you so much for joining today. Sorry this ran quite long. And I appreciate you all sticking with us. Again, this is recorded. Um, oh, okay, let's see. We have another question here. Is it
Is
okay
it
to
okay to
try
try a new event that the
yep,
horse
to
is
try a
well
new
suited
event
for?
that the horse is well suited for? Yes, but that is not something that you are probably going to know at this application stage. So like I said, the discipline you select on your application is not something you're locked into. So you will have the opportunity throughout the year to become acquainted with the discipline that you think your horse is well suited for. But at the time of application submission, you should be representing what you have experience in. We know that, again, you might apply for eventing, and that might be what you have the most experience in and what you want your horse to be well suited for. And then you find out in a couple more months, my horse does not want to go fast. My horse doesn't want to do cross country. Uh, my horse doesn't even want to jump. And we're going to pivot to obstacle work because this horse is super, super, unflappable. He's really cool, this, that, and the other. You have every opportunity to pivot to a new discipline, but your application, your discipline selection should really represent your experience, knowing that that is going to change and ultimately you're going to do what your horse is best suited for. But we always encourage people to try new disciplines at the makeover as long as you prepare yourselves appropriately for it. Anything else? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, please email secretary@therp.org. We're here to help you with your application process or any questions you might have about the event in general. We want you guys to be safe and successful, as I've talked about many times. And we really hope to have you join us for the 2026 Thoroughbred Makeover. So thank you all.